You think you just can't sleep. But what if you're not restless? You're being remembered? What if the heaviness in your chest tonight isn't anxiety? It's a whisper from Allah, pulling you into a moment no one else was invited to. You've been carrying pain no one sees, smiling with a heart that's bleeding. And now, in the middle of the night, when the world has gone quiet, Allah is waking you, not to test you, not to break you, but to speak to the version of you you've been hiding from everyone else. Because when no one checks on you, He does. And when no one notices what you're carrying, He says, "Come to me, I already know." 1. Because the sleeplessness is an invitation, not a punishment. You're staring at the ceiling again. You've turned the pillow. You've checked the time too, 37 a.m. You've tried breathing deeply. You've made wudu. You've done everything you were told would bring peace. But the peace still hasn't come, and neither has sleep. You think maybe something's wrong with you. Maybe you're too broken. Maybe your anxiety is too loud. Maybe your heart is just tired of pretending during the day, and now it's choosing to speak when no one's watching. But what if this moment, this strange, quiet, painful night, was never a mistake? What if you were never meant to sleep right now? What if Allah is calling you? Because you weren't forgotten. You weren't left out. You weren't abandoned in the dark. You were invited into it. This hour is not a punishment. It's a secret door, one that only opens for a few hearts at a time. And right now, it's opened for yours. During the day, life is loud. People ask things from you. You smile at people who don't know you're breaking. You walk past people who would never notice the storm inside you. You speak when you don't want to. You listen when you're already tired. And sometimes, you even pray, but you don't feel it. Because your mind is full, your chest is tight, and your soul feels far. But when night falls, and the notifications stop, and everyone forgets you for a while, Allah remembers you. And maybe He's been waiting all day for this moment, for you, just you. No crowd, no noise, no performance, just your tired soul and His mercy. Sometimes Allah doesn't wait for your perfect prayer. He doesn't wait for you to be ready. He doesn't wait for your strength to return. He comes to you in your weakness, and sometimes He removes your sleep, just to make space for a conversation your soul has been needing. He pulls you out of rest, so He can give you something better than rest. He wakes you when your pain becomes too heavy to carry alone, because He wants you to place it with Him, not through long speeches, not through perfect du'as, but through presence, just showing up, just being real, just letting your tears fall, and saying, "Ya Allah, I don't even know what to ask for anymore, but you know me, you see me, please don't let me fall." That is ibadah. That is intimacy. That is the kind of prayer that angels record with light. You don't need long surahs. You don't need eloquence. You just need to bring your tired heart back to Him, even if it's trembling, even if it's ashamed, even if it's been distant for too long, because Allah doesn't turn away the hearts that come to Him in the dark. He honors them. You may think your sleeplessness is weakness, but in reality, it might be one of the strongest moments of your life, because it's in this hour where Allah writes down who remembered Him while the world forgot. It's in this hour where your dua becomes louder than your pain, even if you whisper it. So tonight, if your chest is heavy and your eyes keep blinking back tears, and no one knows what you're carrying, just sit up. look to the sky, and know the one who lit the stars is waiting to light your heart again. This is not the end of your peace. This is the beginning of your closeness. This is not a breakdown. This is a divine appointment. And sometimes the only way back to peace is through a night like this. So the next time you find yourself wide awake, don't rush to silence it. Don't rush to distract it. Just listen closely, because Allah might be whispering, "Now, let's talk." 2. Because your soul is crying louder than your voice ever could. You didn't say anything today. You smiled when you were supposed to. You nodded when they talked. You laughed when they joked. And not a single person asked if you were okay. Because you're good at hiding it now, aren't you? So good at pretending that even you don't know when the act ends and the pain begins. But when the night comes and the world goes silent, you feel something rising in your chest. It's not your breath. It's not your heartbeat. It's your soul. Your soul is crying, and it's louder than anything you could ever say out loud. You don't even know what's wrong sometimes. You just feel this weight, this pressure, this deep ache inside your chest that never fully goes away. A sadness that doesn't have clear words. A storm inside you, with no lightning and no sound. Only rain that falls from your heart straight into your pillow. But even when you say nothing, even when you pretend you're fine, even when you hold back every tear in front of others, Allah hears you, not your voice, but the version of you that's silent on the outside and screaming on the inside. He hears the prayers you were too scared to make, the ones you thought were too broken, the ones that stayed stuck in your throat because you didn't know how to say them, or whether you deserved to ask anymore. He hears the moment your soul says, "Ya Allah, I don't even know what I need, I just know I need you." Because your voice can lie, your face can hide, your words can be silent, but your soul can't. And that's what Allah listens to. You see, some nights aren't meant for answers. They're meant for release. They're not meant to be fixed. They're meant to be felt, so your heart can finally stop holding everything in. You might feel like no one understands you, like no one knows what you've survived, what you're still silently recovering from, what kind of pain still visits you in flashes, years after the moment that broke you. But Allah knows, and sometimes He keeps you awake because tonight your soul needs to speak to Him more than it needs sleep. Not with big fancy du'as, not with perfect Arabic, not with memorized words, just your breath, your heartbeat, your presence, your raw, unfiltered feelings that finally come to the surface when everything else goes quiet. And do you know how Allah responds to that? With mercy, with gentleness, with a love that never needed your words to begin with. Because He saw what you went through and what you never said. He knew about the nights you cried without making a sound. He knew about the people who hurt you and walked away. He knew about the secret sins you hated but couldn't stop. He knew about the shame, the fear, the guilt, the disappointment you feel in yourself. And He still woke you. Because He hasn't given up on you. Because your soul, even when it's bruised, is still beautiful to Him. And tonight, you didn't have to speak, because your silence was already a dua, and your pain was already heard. So the next time you find yourself wide awake, feeling heavy for no clear reason, don't run from it. Don't push it away. Sit with it. Let it cry. Let it speak. And let Allah be the one who listens without judgment, because He already knows. And when the whole world sleeps on you, Allah never does. 3. Because you're finally alone enough to be real. You've spent the entire day wearing a version of yourself that wasn't the full truth, smiling even when you were exhausted, helping others even when no one helped you, holding back tears, because the world taught you to call that strength. You've become good at managing people's expectations, at nodding, adjusting, surviving. You tell everyone, "I'm fine," and maybe they believe you. Maybe they never ask twice, or maybe they just don't want to see what's behind your eyes. But you know what hurts most? After all the effort, after all the pretending, you go to sleep still feeling unseen, still carrying pain you've never even told anyone about. And maybe that's why Allah keeps you awake tonight. Because finally, you're alone enough to be honest. Not with people, not with family, not even with yourself in the mirror, but with Him. You don't have to pretend anymore. You don't have to smile. You don't have to filter your words. You don't have to be the strong one, because Allah already knows the real you, and He never needed your performance. He just wanted your presence. That version of you that cried on the prayer mat and didn't know why. That version of you that sins, then feels too ashamed to talk to Him again. That version of you who wants to return, but doesn't know how to come back without guilt. He sees that version, and that's the one He calls during the night. Because in the stillness, when no one is watching, you're finally quiet enough to stop performing and just be. Maybe you've been religious in public, but broken in private. Maybe you've quoted Quran in front of others, but felt distant from Allah when you're alone. Maybe you've inspired people online, while silently wondering if your own heart is running on empty. But in this hour, this quiet, lonely, sacred hour, Allah doesn't care about the image you show the world. He cares about the version of you that comes to Him, bare, confused, flawed, hurt, but still hoping. Because that kind of honesty is more beloved to Him than perfect prayers with a disconnected heart. So if you're tired of pretending, if you're tired of looking strong when you're falling apart inside, then this night is a gift, not a curse, not a punishment, a gift. Because when you finally stop performing, Allah finally gets the real you, the one He's been waiting for. And the most beautiful part? You don't have to earn that closeness. You don't have to fix yourself first. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to show up as you are. He already knows what you've been hiding, and He loves you anyway. So if you're awake right now, feeling like the world doesn't know who you really are, let your Lord remind you, I know, I see, and I still want you. Because when you're finally alone enough to be real, you're finally close enough to be healed. 4. Because He's removing the noise so you can hear Him clearly. There's so much noise in your life lately. Not just the sound of people, but the pressure to be something, do something, prove something. The conversations that drain you, the scrolling that leaves your heart feeling empty, the advice that only adds to your confusion, the opinions that drown your own thoughts. You're constantly surrounded by other people's expectations, how you should act, how you should heal, how quickly you should move on. And in the middle of all that noise, you can't even hear your own voice anymore, let alone Allah's. So tonight, He takes it all away. The world sleeps. The messages stop, the notifications fade, the lights dim, and suddenly, for the first time in days, it's just you and the silence. And that silence, it's not empty, it's sacred, because in that quiet space, Allah is speaking to you in a way the day would never allow. You may think the silence is just a pause, but what if it's the actual message? What if the quiet is the place where clarity lives? What if Allah didn't want you to keep asking people for signs, because He was preparing a moment where you could finally receive one, with no one around to interrupt it? There's a reason He didn't let you sleep, because this hour, this moment, is the only time your heart is still enough to listen. You've been asking Allah to guide you. You've been asking for peace, for signs, for strength. But when the world is loud, you keep missing the answer, because it was never meant to come through chaos. It was meant to come through stillness. You were seeking your next step through noise, but Allah clears the path by subtracting everything else. So tonight, if you're awake, if you're sitting in the dark with a racing mind and a quiet room, know that this isn't a void. It's a meeting place, a space where your soul finally has the silence it needs to hear the one it was created for. You're not crazy for feeling distant from yourself. You've just been surrounded by too many voices that never really spoke to your soul. And now, Allah is making space for the only voice that matters. His. The one that says, I was always here. You just needed to leave the world for a moment to hear me again. He's not asking you to be perfect tonight. He's just asking you to sit in the quiet and receive. Maybe that's why your plans failed, why your phone went silent, why the person you kept waiting for didn't reply, why nothing seems to be moving forward. Because sometimes He pauses your world so you can notice the very thing that was pulling you away from Him. And in the silence, you realize it was never a punishment. It was protection. It was purification. It was preparation. Because Allah doesn't just give you the answer you want. He gives you the space you need to understand what your heart was too busy to hear. So if you're awake tonight and the world feels far, don't rush to fill the silence with noise again. Let it stay. Let it speak. Because in that silence, Allah is calling you back to the sound of your fitrah, the soft inner voice you were born with, the one that always knew He was near. And now that the world is finally quiet, you can hear Him clearly again. 5. Because you're being prepared for something greater than comfort. You've been asking for peace, for things to slow down, for the weight on your chest to finally lift, for your heart to breathe again without hurting. And you're wondering why. It's still not happening. You pray, you cry, you show up. You keep holding on, even when everything feels heavy. But the breakthrough you keep begging for still hasn't come. And in moments like these, the mind starts whispering things like, maybe Allah isn't listening. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I'll feel like this forever. But here's the truth. No one told you clearly. You're not being ignored. You're being prepared. Because the thing Allah is building in you is greater than just relief. You asked for comfort, but He's creating capacity. You wanted ease, but He's giving you endurance. You hoped for rest, but He's writing resilience. And those things don't come wrapped in soft blankets. They come through long nights like this one, where your soul is being stretched in silence, your spirit is being carved by confusion, and your heart is being trained to carry something it wasn't strong enough for before. You see, comfort doesn't build warriors. Pain does. Confusion does. Loneliness does. Loss does. Because when you lose everything, you finally see what can't be taken from you. And that's where your real strength is born. Maybe that's why you're awake tonight. Because you're not at the end of your story, you're at the training ground of it. Allah sees what's coming. He knows what you'll be asked to carry in the future. He knows who you'll need to lead, protect, help, or heal. And He's not going to let you face that future with a heart that hasn't been sharpened by the dark. Right now, it feels like nothing's moving forward. But what you can't see is that something inside you is being transformed. Your patience is expanding. Your humility is deepening. Your heart is becoming softer but stronger. Your du'as are becoming real, no longer just requests, but cries from the depths of your soul. And Allah hears them, not just with His mercy, but with a plan. You just don't see it yet, because the roots always grow before the tree appears. The foundation is built before the light is turned on. And maybe, just maybe, that's why you're awake tonight, because He's still building your roots in private. Before showing your growth in public, He's still shaping your spine. So when the storm comes later, you don't bend. He's not delaying your peace to torture you. He's strengthening your vessel. So when He pours the blessing you asked for, you don't shatter under the weight of it. Ease would have made you grateful, but difficulty is making you capable. So no, you're not being punished. You're being refined. And when Allah refines a soul, He does it through fire, not to burn it, but to remove what never belonged. So if you're tired, aching, and asking, why me? If you feel like you're breaking instead of blooming, please hear this. You're not behind. You're not forgotten. You're not too weak. You are being rebuilt for something bigger than comfort, something holy, heavy, and beautifully meant for you. And when it arrives, you'll look back at nights like this and realize that sleepless night was when I was being made strong enough to carry it. 6. Because you needed to be loved in a way no one else could love you. You've been craving connection, even when you tell yourself you're better off alone. Even when you've built walls around your heart to keep it safe, you've still felt it. That quiet ache to be understood, to be held without judgment, to be chosen not because you're useful, but because your soul means something to someone. And maybe that's why your heart has felt so heavy lately. You keep giving pieces of yourself to people who don't know what they're holding. You keep showing up for people who see your presence, but never truly see you. You keep carrying love in your chest for people who wouldn't carry your silence for a single day. You're not cold. You're not too emotional. You're not too much. You just needed to be loved in a way the world didn't know how to love you. And tonight, in this silence, in this sleeplessness, Allah is showing you that love. Not the kind that flatters your ego. Not the kind that disappears when you fall apart, but the kind that stays when no one else does. The kind that sees your worst and still says, "You're mine, and I will never leave you." You've spent so much time trying to be worthy of love, trying to fix yourself, to appear strong, to not be a burden, to always be the one who gives more than they receive. But the truth is, you were already worthy, not because of what you do, but because of who made you. Allah loved you before the heartbreak, before the mistakes, before the masks, before the guilt. And, still, even now, He wakes you in this hour to remind you, you are already enough for me. Because Allah doesn't just love your filtered version. He loves the you that cries over sins but doesn't know how to stop. The you that feels numb in prayer but still shows up. The you that battles the same thought 50 times a day and keeps trying anyway. The you that has no one else to tell the truth to, except Him. And do you know how rare that kind of love is? A love that isn't based on beauty, or status, or usefulness, or perfection. A love that just is. A love that says, even when they let go of you, I never will. So, if you're awake tonight, thinking about all the ways you feel too broken to be loved, pause. Because the truth is, no one could love you the way Allah already does. They might misunderstand your silence. Allah listens to it. They might get tired of your sadness. Allah never turns away the crying heart. They might only love you when you're smiling. Allah loves you even when you're on the floor, shaking, asking Him to just help you breathe. He loved you when you couldn't pray. He loved you when you fell into sin. He loved you when you gave up on yourself and still kept guiding you back. Why? Because He created your soul, and nothing He creates is unloved. So tonight, if your heart is aching from people who left, from people who didn't choose you, from people who made you feel invisible, just remember, Allah sees every part of you, and He never needed you to shine for Him to love your shadow. He just wanted your return, not your perfection, not your performance, just your presence. Let your heart come back. Let it rest in the one place it was always safe. Because you were never too much. You were just waiting to be loved by someone who never needed a reason to love you. And that someone is the one keeping you awake tonight. Not to punish you, but to remind you, I've always been here. You just forgot what real love feels like. 7. Because the dua you haven't made yet is waiting in this hour. You've made so many duas before. Late at night, after heartbreak, after disappointment, after failure. You whispered your needs into the dark, hoping Allah would answer. And sometimes it felt like He didn't. So you stopped. Not completely. You still believe. But the hope that once burned like a fire in your chest feels dim now. You ask out of habit, not because you truly expect a miracle anymore. But what if the dua that changes everything hasn't even been made yet? What if the words that open the gate of your next chapter are still locked inside your chest? And this hour is when Allah wants you to release them? You might think you've already said everything, already begged enough, already cried enough. But Allah knows the prayer you buried, the one you were too scared to say, the one that felt too unrealistic, too late, too impossible. That dua, the one you gave up on, is still alive with Allah. It's not forgotten. It's just waiting for the moment when your soul is quiet enough to say it from a place of complete surrender. And maybe that's why you're awake right now. Not because your body is restless, but because your heart is finally soft enough to ask without pride, to cry without shame, to come to Allah without pretending to be okay. Because there are some duas that can only be made when you're emptied, when you've run out of strength, when you've stopped trying to control everything, when you're too tired to impress anyone, but desperate enough to be real with your Lord. That's when the doors open. That's when the sky bends to listen. That's when the angels lean closer. And that's when Allah says, "Call upon me, I am near." You don't need perfect words. You don't need poetic sentences. You don't even need to know exactly what you want. Just begin. Ya Allah, I don't know how to say it, but you know what's in my heart. You know what I've been hiding. You know what I've been aching for but afraid to ask. Please take care of it for me. That's it. That's dua. That's sincerity. It's not the volume of your voice that reaches Him. It's the weight of your surrender. And sometimes He delays answering your older duas because He was waiting for this version of you to show up. The softer, humbler, braver version. The one that's no longer making requests like a transaction, but making them like a child lost in a storm, calling out for their father. So, if you're awake and you feel something stirring in your chest, even if it's small, don't silence it. That tug you feel in your heart, that lump in your throat, that ache in your chest that has no words yet, that is your dua, trying to come alive. Let it come. Let it be messy. Let it be real. Because what comes from the heart reaches the heavens. And maybe, just maybe, this is the night where your most powerful prayer will finally be spoken. Not the one you practiced, not the one people expect from you, but the one that comes from your core, from the ache you've been carrying for years, from the hope you thought died long ago. That dua is waiting in this hour, and Allah is waiting to hear it. 8. Because Allah wants you to feel the intimacy of being seen without performing. You've spent so much of your life performing, not on a stage, but in rooms where you had to smile when you were breaking, conversations where you had to nod while your heart screamed, spaces where you couldn't be your full self because your truth felt too much for the people around you. You've been the strong one, the dependable one, the one people admire but never really check on. And over time, you learned how to carry your pain quietly. You learned how to look okay, even when your soul felt like it was falling apart in slow motion. You learned how to be what people needed you to be, and you forgot how to just be. But tonight, Allah is waking you in this hour for a reason, not to ask you for more strength, not to test your performance, but to give you something this world rarely offers: the safety of being fully seen without needing to act like you're fine. He's not asking for the curated version of you, not the social media version, not the holding it together in public version, not the religious-sounding version who knows all the right words. He's asking for you, the you that cries quietly in the dark, the you that feels invisible, even around people who claim to care, the you that sometimes feels spiritually disconnected, but still holds onto a thin thread of faith, the you that's been carrying wounds from years ago, wounds you've stopped talking about, because no one really listens when you try. Allah listens. Allah sees, and not the image, the essence. Tonight, you don't need to be eloquent. You don't need to explain yourself. You don't even need to be strong. You just need to be present, because this isn't about proving your worth. This is about remembering you were always worthy, even when you didn't feel like it. Maybe that's why you keep waking up, not because your body is restless, but because your soul is finally tired of pretending, and Allah is giving you a safe space to exhale, to stop holding it all in, to stop pretending to be unshakable, to just be a servant who is seen and loved without conditions. You've spent your days being enough for people, but you were always enough for Him. He saw you before you knew who you were. He loved you before you even tried to earn it. And now, He's calling you in the quiet, to remind you, you don't have to perform for me. I know the real you, and I still chose you. So if you're lying in bed tonight, wondering if anyone would still love you, if they saw the full truth of who you are, Allah already has. He saw your weakness and wrote mercy. He saw your mistakes and planned redemption. He saw your silence and stayed. The world may only love you when you're easy to hold, but Allah's love never lets go, even when you're falling apart in His hands. This is not a moment of loneliness. It's a moment of intimacy, a moment of being held not by people, but by the one who created your soul and never asked you to perform in order to be seen. So rest your heart. Let the masks fall. Let the weight drop. Because tonight, you are finally being seen, the way you always needed to be. And this time, You don't need to pretend to be anything other than exactly who you are. So if you find yourself wide awake again tonight, don't rush to silence the pain. Don't force yourself to escape it, because maybe this moment isn't meant to be avoided. Maybe it's meant to be answered. Answered with sujood, with tears, with whispered du'as that no one else hears but the one who never sleeps. You are not restless. You are being remembered. You are not forgotten. You are being refined. You are not alone in this night, because the one who wrote your story is still writing your healing. And if Allah is keeping you awake, it's not to punish you. It's to remind you, I see you now. Not the version you show the world, but the one only I was meant to love. So breathe. Cry if you need to. Speak to him like you used to, when your heart still believed in miracles. Because this night is not empty. This night is your invitation, and Allah is closer to you in this hour than the world ever was in daylight.